Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and certainly your description of how we've handled these things in the past is absolutely accurate. I take no difficulty with that at all. We are, however, at that point where we have these 5 nominations which we've objected to, and I know the chairman knows and his predecessor knows that we have serious objections to them. Those objections continue today. On most of the run-of-the-mill appointments we get, they get cleared pretty quickly, and we do have hearings on them, and we move along. On occasion, we have ones that we just can't clear. And so that everyone knows, we take our obligation with the advice and consent obligation in the Constitution very, very seriously. And we've dug on all of these, and we've wound up with these 5 out of all of them that we've had before that we just can't agree to. And so it is time that there be a hearing, and if they want to continue, the laundry gets put out here in this hearing, and we go from there. Obviously, unless things change dramatically, I'm going to put a hold on these when they do get to the floor. You have the numbers, you'll be able to put them out there, and we'll go from there. But again, I stress that the time result has been a function of our looking into these and things you're going to hear today that we have problems with on all 5 of the nominees. Obviously, they're going to get a chance to defend themselves. Then I have some witnesses I'd like to call to corroborate the things we're going to say about these here in the hearing today. So with that, let's talk first of all about Ms. Taylor. I want to address her nomination specifically to start with. She certainly currently serves as General Counsel at USAID, where she oversees the enforcement of U.S. laws toward its contractors and partners. Sadly, on her watch, some of these partners repeatedly promoted abortion overseas in violation of U.S. law. Given the slow response and weak justifications I received when I raised these questions, I have substantial concerns she will not draw a strong line in states' relationship with organizations that violate U.S. law. Now, I've got a second reason for holding her, and I'm going to continue to hold her. She is the highest ranking in the one State Department wants the most to be confirmed, and I'm going to continue to do that until the State Department gives us some basic information that we really want. I've been asking for 8 months for information regarding the suspension of Special Envoy Robert Malley's security clearance. The department's defiance left me no choice but to hold this nomination until State responded. State came in to brief me and the chairman. We went into the SCIF. This was supposed to be secret, and nobody was supposed to know because it was such a big deal. I can tell you what happened in that SCIF. Nothing. They refused to give us the information as to why Malley's clearance was suspended. This is important to me. It's important to the chairman. It's important to this committee because we all listened to Mr. Malley for a long time. He told us things. We acted and thought about, formed beliefs based on those, and they won't tell us why his clearance was suspended. So they have to tell us, but they won't. They act like we work for them instead of them working for us. And so until that happens, I'm going to continue to hold Ms. Taylor's nomination. And and I've gotten word to the secretary to quit calling me and asking me for favors when they won't do what they're supposed to do. If I were the chairman of the committee, I would subpoena this, and if they didn't answer the subpoena, I'd go to try to hold them in contempt of court. This is not right. We can't do our oversight work without getting this information. Certainly it is classified information, but I'm the most senior member of the Intelligence Committee. I hear this stuff every day. The people that came in to brief us, my clearance was at least as good, probably better than the guys that came in to brief us. So in any event, that's going to continue on. Regarding Mr. Woodhouse to be sanctions coordinator, that as the chairman indicated, I was the one that put together the legislation that created that that particular position. It's a great position to have. Mr. Woodhouse played a pivotal role in the administration's protection of Nord Stream 2 pipeline from mandatory bipartisan sanctions before Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. While Mr. Woodhouse was not the only administration official responsible for this blatant violation of the law during his confirmation process, it's become clear that he intentionally misled the committee and ignored facts that contradicted Biden policy. My legislation created that job. And his predecessor did a good job at it. I believe Mr. Woodhouse will not embody the same standards required for this position, and I'm going to leave the rest of this to Senator Cruz, who has some very strong thoughts on this matter, and he'll be here today to talk about that. Turning to Mr. Aliu, I have concerns regarding his judgment and leadership as Deputy Chief of Mission at Embassy Warsaw. Mr. Aliu did not seek approval from Washington when a foreign national with concerning business ties stayed at the official residence with his permission for 6 weeks. This person was a foreign national with business ties in Montenegro, the country to which Mr. Aliu is now nominated. In any event, several current Foreign Service officers have described the toxic work environment under Mr. Aliu's leadership. One of these individuals wrote a formal letter regarding complaints against Mr. Aliu, a redacted copy of which I'm going to submit for the record today. The posting was classified as, quote, difficult to staff while Mr. Aliu was running it. Immediately upon him leaving, the difficulty of the staff was removed. So I can't support his nomination. Regarding the nomination of Mr. Svagra, this is a difficult one to be ambassador for Arctic, and certainly I support we need a nominee in the Arctic. I have great respect for Senator Murkowski. But this is another example, I think, of the administration's failure to vet nominees. Mr. Svaga traveled extensively to Russia and China and negotiated multiple MOUs with Chinese institutions tied to government, defense, and intelligence services, and appeared on a panel with Russians who were sanctioned by the United States government. One of the MOUs that he negotiated was going to allow China to access the computers at the university where he worked. That was stopped, fortunately. Certainly a bad judgment. In addition to that, while our staff was going through this, he failed to disclose that any of this, and he had to update his file 3 times when confronted with information about his record. My staff found about trips he made. They went to him and said, hey, you didn't disclose this trip. He's up. I forgot. And so he disclosed the trip. That happened multiple times, not just once. Finally, he wrote an op-ed extolling the importance of the U.S.-Russia relationship after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. I continue to strongly oppose this nomination, and it's unfortunate we have him here today. Finally, there's Mr. Ford. The department says the health and safety of U.S. diplomats is its highest priority. Indeed, we should always guarantee our diplomats their basic privileges and immunities. Sadly, Mr. Forden failed to ensure these protections during his tenure at Embassy Beijing during COVID. In our staff investigation of his nomination, they found that from 20 to 23, department leadership in Washington and at Embassy Beijing subjected diplomats and their families to severe, unsafe, and degrading treatment by the Chinese government, our greatest adversary and a major counterintelligence threat. Specifically, state granted a waiver of inviolability in September of 2020, which waived certain diplomatic privileges and immunities to allow the Chinese government to test and quarantine U.S. diplomats upon arrival in China. That's not allowed unless there is the waiver. The Chinese violated this waiver constantly, yet Mr. Forden encouraged compliance and never imposed any real costs on the Chinese for these violations. I'm submitting a letter for the record from multiple courageous whistleblowers, some of whom are with us here today, as well as the numerous documents that I've obtained. These documents show that under Mr. Forden, career diplomats had to comply with draconian quarantine protocols, often against their will and in deplorable conditions. Some examples include not being allowed to quarantine at home and instead be put in a Chinese quarantine hotel, Quarantines enforced for weeks on end with little to no ability to communicate with embassy staff or loved ones. Dilapidated quarantine hotels with no cleaning services and still filthy from previous occupants. Minor children separated from their families and the inability to get basic medical care. In one case, a toddler who was denied treatment for food poisoning. In December 2020, Embassy Beijing began to allow the Chinese government to require incoming arrivals to submit to a blood test in the United States, a major change in protocol, and only from U.S. labs that were handpicked by Chinese embassy and consulates. Let's let this sink in. The U.S. government facilitated Chinese collection of DNA from dozens of U.S. diplomats inside the United States. This is appalling. When asked, Mr. Forden's defense was he was on leave and not involved in the creation or implementation of these policies. But this isn't true. Mr. Forden returned to post in July of 2020, 2 months before the initial waiver was issued. Mr. Forden will tell you that no diplomats were forced into fever hospitals or similar institutions. This is also not true. A mother and her infant went into a fever hospital on his watch. Just days after he left post, 2 American families were detained in makeshift fever clinics for at least 60 days each. That shows how bad things got, and there are photos of this condition which we're going to submit into the record. State will also say our diplomats voluntarily submitted to these protocols and conditions. This isn't true either. The information was never disclosed to them, and the list goes on. An unwillingness to stand up for our diplomats and deference to an authoritarian government are not qualities we should promote, and these are not people that we want running our embassies. I want to thank the whistleblowers and their families for their difficult service in China and for their bravery. For those of you that are here today, I'm sorry the State Department failed you. If I hear of any reprisals against these whistleblowers who've come forward, all career employees at the State Department, there's going to be serious consequences that flow from that. As I say, we'll get to some witnesses in a few minutes. Look, I don't like this any more than anybody else does. It's unfortunate we have these, but we take these matters seriously. And I understand the majority has the power to run over us. They can sure do that. Out of the 5, I doubt all 5 of you will make it, because I don't think that the majority leader is going to devote the time to all 5. But there you are for trying. So with that, let's get on with it. We'll hear from them, and then we'll hear from others who have matters to say in their regard.
We're now